Hello and welcome to this episode of the Magnetic Woman Show. I'm your host, Lauren Joyce, the Magnetic Woman. And today I want to talk about something that I have really been thinking about a lot over this last week, and that is the fact that sacrificing is not holy. Okay, now just stick with me. If you follow any of my content, if you've been around for any length of time, then there's a few things you probably already know about me. I grew up Catholic. I went through 10 years of Catholic school. If you've listened to any of my recent content, that you know I love the Dominican Nun podcast. And as somebody who grew up Catholic and is now a Magdalene priestess, I actually think probably a lot of female Catholic saints, Catholic mystics, and even a fair amount of nuns and sisters are at their core priestesses. And when you listen to the Dominican Nun podcast, which I did an entire episode comparing and contrasting the Nun podcast with Housewives, I mean, it is genius if I do say so myself. One thing that is so clear with the Nun podcast is that, or the Sisters podcast, because there is a difference between nuns and sisters. Anyways, um, these women truly are living their purpose and a life of devotion. And again, as a Magdalene priestess, I think that's one of the things that struck me so deeply, how they talk about Christ, the church, being a sister, their vocation sounds exactly how I talk about being a Magdalene priestess. It's just that what we are devoted to is different. And I saw a clip the other day of the Nuns podcast talking about, she was talking about Mass, Catholic Mass, and she said the ritual of the sacrifice, which essentially is what Mass is. Mass is this ritualizing of Jesus's sacrifice, like sacrificing his life for humanity. So during Catholic Mass, um, Catholics believe that the communion wafer and the communion wine actually turn into the body and blood of Christ. And it is this symbol of um, the Last Supper and the symbol of him sacrificing his life to save the sins, to save us all from sin, right? But when she said the ritual of the sacrifice, it hit something so deep in me. And I was like, wow, that really is the difference. Patriarchal religion teaches us that sacrifice is holy. And not just for Christians, Jesus sacrificing his life, but especially for women, there is this conscious, unconscious, overt, and subtext. The more you sacrifice of yourself, the more you sacrifice your desires, the more you sacrifice your wants, your needs, the holier you are. The path of a nun, of a sister, and the path of spiritual devotion to a patriarchal God is a path of renunciation. You're renouncing, you're giving up earthly pleasures, you're giving up wealth, you're giving up sex. Like give up, give up, give up. Sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. The path of the priestess, and specifically the pleasure priestess, which is what I am, is a path of reclamation. It is reclaiming the parts of ourselves as women that we have been told are too much. It is reclaiming the feminine and the forbidden nature of the feminine. It is reclaiming, again, all of the things that we've been told to sacrifice. And so I've really been thinking about, where in my life am I still holding on to this like patriarchal religious conditioning, purity culture idea of sacrifice is holy, suffering, shows how worthy I am. Like the more I suffer, the more worthy I am. If I can, like, let me prove through my suffering how devout I am. And the truth of the matter is, as humans in life, there is suffering and there is sacrifice, right? Like, period. You're gonna suffer. You're gonna get your heart broken. You're gonna lose people that you love. You're gonna want something really, really bad and it's not gonna happen. You're gonna go after something you really want and have to sacrifice other things. This idea that sacrifice and suffering is like so holy, I think, and because we live in this patriarchal society that's built upon women sacrificing themselves, basically martyring themselves, we have to be really cautious about how much we hook into the idea of suffering as a path of devotion, the idea that sacrificing is holy, is a path of devotion. So when I was sitting this, I was like, wow, one thing that really comes up is how I still, and I think that this is a life, I feel like I'm going to sneeze, a lifelong journey of unlearning as somebody who comes from Catholicism on both sides of her family, right? As far back as anybody can remember, a woman in the patriarchy, right? Like all of this conditioning. But one way I really see this coming up is the fear of the other shoe dropping. This fear, essentially, that you're going to be punished when things go well. You're going to be punished for experiencing joy, experiencing happiness, right? So there's that like patriarchal religious conditioning, puritanical conditioning of like, don't be too happy, don't get too ahead of yourself, right? Like, be humble, rein it in. Like, yes, that's great, but know that things are probably not going to go well soon. Or like, oh, that's great, but let me tell you how hard it was for me to get to this point. It's because suffering and sacrifice has been glorified over pleasure, ease, alignment, magic, serendipity, right? And again, that does not mean that the path of the priestess, this path of the sacred feminine, is one of ease and ease alone. Like I've been very open and candid about how the last 3 years have been a massive underworld journey. Talk about dark night of the motherfucking soul. Like I felt like the last 3 years I've been crawling on my knees over shards of glass every day, right? So this isn't like, oh, you choose the path of the sacred feminine and then you spiritually bypass all of your humanity. No. And it's also not about, I think, as a pleasure priestess, one thing that I am exceptional at, but then can be a problem is how I can transmute any situation. I can transmute anything and everything. I can alchemize anything and everything. And my capacity to hold discomfort and my capacity to transmute things that like aren't working for me is really, really big, which is a blessing and a curse. And that's what ends up having a lot of women lead kind of these complacent lives because you're still running on the programming that sacrifice and suffering is holy, is devotion. And it might not be conscious because here's the other thing that I don't know that everybody realizes. Every single fucking person has patriarchal religious conditioning. It does not matter if you grew up Catholic, it does not matter if you grew up religious. It is baked into the societal cake at this point, especially here in the United States. And so you might not consciously be running on this idea that sacrifice and suffering is holy, but under the surface, that is what your ancestors ran on. That is what they listened to in church. That is, the immigrant mentality. Like it's so baked into the cake. So unhooking from that, creating a different foundation where pleasure, joy, fun are are seen as your path of devotion, where you're looking and you're like, wow, I am so like things get to get better and better and better. And yes, there might be heartbreak and hard moments throughout, but I don't need the hard moments to prove and justify why I get to have what I want. Are you with me? So that's why two things. I'm running Slut Summer, which is a 30-day immersion. I'm so excited. We start July 5th, and it is all about like shocking you back to life, boosting your turn on, boosting pleasure, reclaiming this idea of slut, right? Which, in my opinion, is just a woman who is in full ownership of her erotic and sexual power. Like, who wouldn't want to be that, you know? And thus confronting all of the patriarchal and religious conditioning we have around the feminine energy, feminine power. And that's also why I've created the Red Temple. This was formerly Mystics, Harlots, and Heretics. The only thing that has changed is the title. This is the goddess temple that we have not had for thousands of years. We meet every other week. There's courses, there's an intimate Telegram group. This week we learned about and worked with La Paiva, who's a courtesan. So within the Red Temple, yes, we work with connect to goddesses and archetypes. We learn about and work with mystics, and we learn about and work with harlots, courtesans, right? Because for the last 2000 years, there has absolutely been this dichotomy split, the Madonna whore paradigm, right? The Madonna, the mystic, the path of the spiritual woman is one of often renouncing pleasure, sex, desire, and money. And the courtesan is the one that owns her desires for pleasure, sex, money, right? And so the Red Temple is about bringing that together. So if you join the Red Temple and pay in full before July 1st, you will receive Slut Summer, the entire month immersion. Um, and you could do either or, of course. And when you sign up and pay in full before July 1st for the Red Temple, you will also receive an in-person VIP day with me here in Pittsburgh, which if you've been living under a rock, if you haven't been living under a rock, I should say, then you'll have noticed Pittsburgh has been in the news. It is constantly rated as one of the best mid-sized cities to visit. And because I am a woman who only does the best of the best, the places I will take you, the city tour pack that you get, like I put together a packet of like all the things to do, all the places to eat, blah, 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 is unmatched, okay? So you can join the Red Temple at themagneticwoman.com/forbidden, or you can join us for just a month inside of Slut Summer, where we are amping the fuck up at themagneticwoman.com/summer. Either way, whatever one you join, or if you do both, it is about rewiring this idea that is so deeply ingrained in us that sacrificing and suffering is a way to prove our worth, that it's a way to justify our desires, that it's a way to show how worthy we are. So if you unhooked from this idea that sacrifice and suffering is holy, right? Is the path that you need to walk on to prove your worthiness, what would your life look like? What would be available to you? What would you allow for yourself? If suffering was not required, if sacrificing was not required, what would you allow for yourself? And it can be a really confronting question because oftentimes, again, you just don't realize that that is the programming that you're running on. But that is what we are rewiring, my loves, because The patriarchy is going to continue as long as women continue to sacrifice themselves, as long as women continue to martyr themselves, as long as women continue to overfunction for the men in their lives, for the companies they work for the world, right? Like we hear about, and people talk about like, oh, matriarchy now, and it's like, in order for a woman to actually be in the matriarchy, you have to unlearn a lot of fucking shit. And it's confronting and it's uncomfortable. But that's why I'm here, because I am here to guide you. I am here to initiate you. I am here to lead you through this because not only have I been doing this for a really long time, and I've worked with women all over the world for the last decade doing this, but the fact of the matter is this is what my entire life has been leading towards, leading the Red Temple, leading Slut Summer. I mean, look, I thought I was gonna be a nun. I thought I was going to be a nun. Now I'm leading a program called Slut Summer. Okay? Like, I have really gone into the deconditioning. I've really gone into the depths of unhooking, untangling, unlearning so much of the patriarchal and religious conditioning that we have as women. And now I'm a woman who, I went out the other week. I went dancing and I was wearing this like tiny little slutty, slinky dress. I feel so hot. I feel like such a slut in it. And this guy came over to me and he's like, wow, you look so nice. And I'm like, thanks. And he goes, oh, you're not surprised that I said that? And I go, no. Why would I be surprised? I look amazing. And then he says, wow, guess you're not very humble. And I said, no. Why would I be humble? Look at me. I know I'm amazing. The patriarchy was built upon and forced us to like live under this false idea that like the more you are quote unquote humble, the more you like disown your brilliance, your beauty, your power, your magnetism, that you'll somehow be fucking rewarded with what? Male attention? Please. There is no reward for a woman in the patriarchy. The patriarchy just keeps dangling this carrot in front of you, being like, okay, if you're good enough, if you're a good little girl, we're gonna reward you. You never get the fucking reward. So why am I gonna sit there and play humble and meek and like, I don't know that I'm amazing. I don't know that I'm beautiful. I don't know that I'm hot. Why am I gonna play that? No. That is the energy of Slut Summer. It is the woman who is like, yeah, I know I look hot. Thank you. Yeah. Why would I be humble? I look amazing. So if that is the vibe you want to step into, join me for Slut Summer, themagneticwoman.com/summer. And if you want to go even deeper and really lean into the forbidden wisdom of the feminine, connecting to the ancient feminine arts and powers, join me in the Red Temple at themagneticwoman.com/forbidden. And of course, the links are down below.